Have you ever stopped and wondered why, despite everything in your life looking great, family, friends, career, you still feel numb? It's an unsettling feeling, isn't it? You go through the motions, check all the boxes, but deep down, there's this emptiness, this detachment from your emotions. It's not sadness, and it's not happiness either. It's something in between, or perhaps more accurately, a lack of both. It's almost like your emotions are muted, like your body and mind are functioning without fully engaging with the world around you. And the frustrating part? No one talks about it. You're not alone in feeling this way, but it's rare for anyone to openly admit it. The irony is, you might be living the life others dream of: success, stability, and support, but there's still this lingering feeling of being disconnected. It's easy to brush it off, thinking it's just stress or burnout. But what if I told you this numbness goes much deeper than that? In this video, I'll share with you the hidden causes of this emotional void and why it can happen even when everything seems perfect. Stay with me as we uncover why you keep feeling numb even when life's going well. Emotional numbness is one of those experiences that often goes unnoticed, especially when everything in your life appears to be going well. You might think that emotional numbness is just another form of sadness, or maybe even a temporary phase that will eventually pass. But here's the thing, it's much more complex than that. Emotional numbness is not the same as feeling sad. It's not about feeling down or grieving or missing out on something. In fact, it doesn't necessarily feel like anything at all. It's a strange void, a disconnection from the feelings that should come naturally in life. You might still be smiling, you might still be going through the motions of life, but something inside you just feels flat. So why does this happen? How is it that in the middle of what seems like a good, stable life, you can still feel like you're just not there? It's almost as if you're watching life from the outside, like a bystander who is observing everything without being able to participate in it. This detachment can often feel alienating and confusing. It's a bit like being on autopilot. Your body and mind are moving, but you're not really engaged in the journey, and it might not even be something that you recognize right away, because it can sneak up on you slowly, like a cloud rolling in on an otherwise bright day. You don't always see it coming. When we talk about emotional numbness, it's important to understand that it's more than just the absence of happiness. It's the absence of feeling anything. You're no longer feeling the rush of excitement when something good happens. You're not experiencing the deep lows of disappointment or sadness when things go wrong. Everything just sort of sits there. You're not engaged with the highs or lows of life, and because of that, life can start to feel like it's happening to you, not for you. You may have heard someone say, "I'm just going through the motions," but that's exactly the feeling that emotional numbness brings. You wake up, do the things you're supposed to do, and then go to bed, but something feels missing. You might be accomplishing everything you thought you wanted, checking off goals, ticking boxes, but none of it feels real. The tricky part is that this numbness often doesn't have a specific cause that you can point to, at least not right away. Unlike sadness or grief, where the reasons are often clear, losing someone you love, experiencing a disappointment, or going through a tough time, numbness can strike even when life seems to be going well on the surface. You might have a good job, a loving family, good health, and still feel as though you're drifting through life without truly connecting to it. It's not that you're unhappy, it's that the happiness doesn't quite feel real. It's like living in a world where everything is muted, like watching a beautiful movie through a fogged-up window. You can see the action, but it's hard to actually feel it. One of the key differences between emotional numbness and sadness is that with sadness you can at least feel something. You know what's wrong, and you can start processing your emotions. But numbness is like being cut off from the very ability to feel. You might not even realize how numb you are until something small happens that should trigger an emotional response, but it just doesn't. For example, you might get some really exciting news. Maybe you landed the job you've been working toward for years. You should be thrilled, right? But instead of feeling excited, you just sit there processing the information, but without any rush of joy or pride. You can't even muster up a smile. It's not that you're unhappy about the news, it's that you're unable to fully experience it. And that's where the confusion sets in. When you're not feeling anything, you start questioning whether the problem is with you or with the world around you. At this point, you might be wondering, if I'm not sad, then what is it? Why do I feel so detached? This is where the concept of emotional numbness starts to take shape. It's not just about a lack of joy, it's a disconnection from all your emotions. It's as if your emotional state is in a constant state of shutdown. And that shutdown can be the result of so many different things happening below the surface, many of which we don't fully understand. It can happen because of emotional overload, mental exhaustion, or even subconscious defense mechanisms. And while it's not always easy to pinpoint exactly what caused it, it's important to acknowledge that the absence of emotions can often be a sign that something deeper is at play. What happens when we're constantly exposed to stress or trauma, or when we are in environments that demand a lot from us, is that our emotional systems start to go into survival mode. Our brains are wired to protect us, and if we feel threatened, whether emotionally, physically, or mentally, our mind may shut down feelings to help us cope. This is a defense mechanism. It's not that you're choosing to shut off your emotions, it's your brain's way of keeping you from being overwhelmed by them. But over time, this constant emotional numbing can make it harder and harder to engage with life in the way we're meant to. Think of it like this. You've heard of people who are too busy to feel, or too tired to care. That's emotional numbness in action. It's when the world around you demands so much attention that you don't have the emotional energy left to fully engage with it. And sometimes, when we try to ignore or push away uncomfortable feelings, we end up numbing all feelings, good and bad. The numbness at first can seem like a temporary escape, but it becomes a habit, and the longer you stay in this emotional state, the harder it is to break out of it. It becomes the default setting, and you start losing your ability to feel joy, sadness, excitement, or even empathy. You become disconnected, not just from the world around you, but from yourself. This is why emotional numbness can be so tricky. It doesn't always make sense. You might feel fine on the surface, no major issues in your life, no apparent struggles, but that feeling of not feeling can be incredibly frustrating. It leaves you wondering, what's wrong with me? And that frustration can make things worse. You might beat yourself up for not feeling the way you think you should, for not reacting the way others expect you to. But the truth is, emotional numbness is often a sign of something deeper that needs attention. Whether it's stress, unresolved trauma, or something else, there's a reason why your emotions aren't connecting the way they once did. It's important to recognize that emotional numbness isn't a permanent state. It's a signal, a sign that something needs to be addressed, whether it's your mental health, your physical health, or your life circumstances. Understanding that you're not broken, that this numbness doesn't define you, is the first step toward healing. But before you can truly begin to feel again, you have to recognize what's causing the numbness in the first place. And that's what we'll uncover as we continue to explore this topic. Because while emotional numbness can feel isolating and confusing, it's not something you have to live with forever. There's a path out, and it begins with understanding why you feel the way you do. When it comes to emotional numbness, one of the most silent and insidious causes is unresolved trauma. Now you might be thinking, I don't have trauma. I haven't been through anything that traumatic. But that's the tricky part. Trauma isn't always what we expect it to be. It's not always a major life event, like a car accident, an abusive relationship, or the loss of a loved one. Trauma can be more subtle and far-reaching, affecting your mental and emotional state in ways you don't even recognize, and it can stay with you for years, even decades, influencing your ability to connect with your emotions, no matter how well your life seems to be going. What we often don't realize is that trauma can come in many forms, whether it's childhood neglect, difficult family dynamics, emotional wounds from previous relationships, or even the subtle psychological toll of growing up in an environment that didn't provide the emotional security you needed. Trauma doesn't have to be a single event. It can be a pattern of events, a series of moments where your emotional needs weren't met, or experiences that you never had the space to process. But here's the thing. Just because you don't consciously remember something as trauma, doesn't mean it hasn't affected you. And it doesn't mean it won't impact your emotional well-being. The real kicker about unresolved trauma is that it often goes unnoticed until it starts to manifest in unexpected ways, like emotional numbness. You see, trauma has a way of sinking deep into the psyche, sometimes lying dormant for years. And while it may seem like you're fine on the surface, it's still affecting how you view the world, how you interact with others, and most importantly, how you connect with your own emotions. The longer you carry this unresolved trauma, the more it builds a wall between you and your feelings. It's like having a dam blocking the flow of water. On the outside, everything seems calm. Everything appears to be flowing smoothly. But inside, there's a slow, constant buildup of pressure. For example, let's consider someone who experienced neglect as a child. Perhaps they didn't have the emotional support they needed from their caregivers. Maybe they were left to fend for themselves emotionally, and they learned to suppress their needs and feelings to survive. As an adult, this person might have a successful career, a healthy relationship, and all the outward signs of someone who has it all together. But deep inside, they may struggle with feelings of disconnection and emotional numbness. They might find it hard to feel truly happy, truly sad, or anything in between. It's not because they don't want to feel, it's because the trauma they experienced has made it difficult for them to access those emotions. The emotional walls built in childhood are still standing, and even though they've been able to build a successful life, those walls remain in place. The strange thing about trauma is that it doesn't always present itself in ways we recognize as problems. It can show up in more subtle, often confusing ways. For instance, you might find yourself unable to experience joy, even in moments where others might be celebrating. Think about getting a promotion at work, something that should bring a sense of pride and excitement. But instead, you might find yourself indifferent, as if the good news doesn't quite penetrate your emotional core. You might ask yourself why you can't feel the excitement, but the truth is, the trauma you've experienced has built a wall that's preventing you from fully connecting to those feelings, and the longer you ignore it, the thicker that wall becomes. But the impact of unresolved trauma doesn't just stop at emotional numbness. It can also affect your ability to engage in relationships, form deep connections, or even trust others. If you've been hurt in the past, especially in formative years, it's not unusual to develop coping mechanisms like emotional detachment to protect yourself. And while that might have worked at the time to help you survive, it can become a long-term pattern that keeps you stuck in a state of emotional numbness. You may find that you're emotionally unavailable, not only to others, but to yourself as well. The idea of letting your guard down and allowing yourself to feel fully can seem too risky, even when life is good. Your brain has learned that feeling deeply can lead to hurt, and so it simply shuts down those feelings as a form of protection. What makes this so difficult is that trauma isn't always something you're consciously aware of. You might be walking through life, checking off your to-do list, taking care of responsibilities, and maintaining the outward appearance of success. But all the while, there's this deep-seated emotional scar that's affecting how you experience everything. And because you're not consciously aware of this unresolved trauma, you might just chalk up the numbness to something else: stress, busyness, or even just getting older. But the truth is, unresolved trauma can cause you to feel emotionally detached in even the most positive situations. It's like trying to enjoy a movie when you're sitting behind a foggy glass. Nothing feels as vivid or as real as it should. The thing about unresolved trauma is that it doesn't get better with time, it gets worse. The more you suppress those feelings, the more ingrained they become. It's like a wound that doesn't heal, it just festers. Over time, this constant suppression leads to what many people experience as emotional numbness. You can't access the emotions that are supposed to be there. You can't feel connected to the people around you. You can't even enjoy the things you used to love. It all starts to feel dull. And while this numbness can feel like a shield, a way to protect yourself from being hurt, it also isolates you from the life you deserve to be living. But here's the good news. It's never too late to start healing from unresolved trauma. The first step is recognizing that it exists, even if it's not immediately obvious. You don't have to have experienced something that you'd consider tragic to have trauma. The key is acknowledging that emotional wounds, no matter how small they seem, can have a lasting impact on your ability to feel and connect with others. Once you recognize this, you can begin the healing process, whether through therapy, mindfulness, or even just by allowing yourself the space to feel and process emotions you've been avoiding. Healing from trauma isn't easy, but it's the only way to reconnect with yourself and break free from the numbness that's been holding you back. By addressing the unresolved trauma in your life, you can start to rebuild your emotional resilience. You can start to feel again, really feel, and regain the ability to experience both the highs and lows that make life worth living. So if you've been feeling numb, ask yourself, What emotional wounds have I been carrying around without realizing it? The answer might just be the key to unlocking your emotions once more. When we think about emotional numbness, one of the most often overlooked causes is chronic stress and burnout. Many people are familiar with the feeling of stress, whether it's from work, relationships, or other aspects of life. But what happens when that stress becomes constant, when it lingers for weeks, months, or even years? The problem is that stress isn't just something we experience for a short period. It's something that, over time, can take a serious toll on our mental, emotional, and even physical health. And it's one of the primary culprits behind emotional numbness. At first, stress feels like an immediate reaction. It's something you can manage, right? A few late nights at work, a tough project deadline, or maybe a personal challenge that demands a lot of attention. But what happens when these stressors become chronic? When your daily life is filled with demands, responsibilities, and pressures that never seem to let up, this constant state of stress can start to deplete your emotional energy. And over time, it can lead to burnout. And burnout doesn't just make you tired or worn out, it makes it hard to feel anything at all. It's a quiet killer of joy, motivation, and connection. When you're constantly stressed, your brain enters a state of heightened alertness. The body's natural fight-or-flight response is activated, releasing cortisol and adrenaline into the bloodstream to prepare you for action. At first, this is great. It helps you face challenges and stay focused. But the problem arises when this response becomes chronic. Instead of being a short-term solution to an immediate problem, stress becomes a long-term condition that your body learns to live with. Over time, your brain and body become so accustomed to this state of heightened alertness that it starts to feel normal. But here's the issue. While you may think you're just getting by and handling it all, your body is slowly being worn down and your emotional system is being shut off in order to cope with the constant strain. In a state of chronic stress, the brain's ability to regulate emotions becomes impaired. The constant release of cortisol, the stress hormone, starts to overwhelm the brain's emotional centers, particularly the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for processing emotions, decision-making, and emotional regulation. This means that over time, your emotional responses become dulled. When you're under chronic stress, it's as if your brain is prioritizing survival over emotional connection. And in this survival mode, feeling happiness or sadness becomes secondary. It's like having a fog settle over your emotional landscape. Everything becomes muted. You may find that you simply stop reacting to things the way you used to. That promotion you've worked so hard for. Instead of feeling excitement, you might feel nothing. The anniversary celebration with your partner that you were looking forward to. Again, a sense of detachment. The good news, the bad news, the mundane, everything just feels the same. And that's the problem with chronic stress. It erodes your ability to feel. But there's something even deeper at play here. When stress becomes chronic, it also leads to burnout. Burnout isn't just being tired, it's the complete depletion of emotional, physical, and mental energy. It's when you reach a point where you no longer feel motivated or capable of handling the things that used to bring you joy or satisfaction. And when you reach this level of burnout, it doesn't just impact your ability to work or manage your daily responsibilities. It impacts your emotional connection with the world around you. You become disconnected, not just from your work but from your own emotions. It's as if the wellspring of feelings you once had has run dry. You're physically present, but emotionally absent. Burnout and emotional numbness are closely intertwined. In fact, emotional numbness can be considered one of the key symptoms of burnout. When you're burnt out, you lose your sense of fulfillment, your emotional resilience, and your capacity to experience joy. The things that used to inspire you, whether that's your career, your hobbies, or your relationships, no longer seem meaningful. You may even start to feel disconnected from people you care about, finding it hard to engage in conversations, form deep connections, or feel empathy for others. The emotional exhaustion that comes with burnout creates a kind of emotional paralysis, and this is where numbness creeps in. Think about a time when you've been under extreme stress, perhaps juggling multiple responsibilities at once, dealing with a high-pressure job, or handling personal challenges. In those moments, you might have found yourself saying, "I just don't have the energy to deal with this right now," or "I just don't care." Those are warning signs that you're starting to feel emotionally numb. It's not that you've lost your capacity to care. It's that the overwhelming stress has pushed you into a place of emotional overload, where your mind and body simply shut down to protect you. And the longer this goes on, the harder it becomes to break free from the cycle. But here's the thing: emotional numbness caused by chronic stress and burnout isn't a permanent condition. It's a signal. It's your body's way of telling you that something needs to change. And the first step in overcoming it is recognizing the impact of chronic stress on your emotional well-being. Once you understand that burnout isn't just about being tired, it's about being emotionally drained, it becomes easier to address. You need to make self-care a priority, not just physical rest, but emotional recovery. That might mean stepping back from some of the responsibilities that are overwhelming you, taking time to reflect on what's truly important, and finding healthier ways to cope with stress. Managing stress isn't just about reducing the pressure, it's about resetting your emotional system, giving your brain and body the chance to heal and reconnect. Another important part of overcoming stress-induced emotional numbness is learning how to recognize when you're reaching the point of burnout before it's too late. By the time you start feeling emotionally numb, burnout might already be well underway. But there are subtle signs before that, like constant fatigue, irritability, lack of motivation, or a sense of overwhelm. If you catch these early warning signs, you can take proactive steps to manage your stress and prevent burnout from taking hold. Practice relaxation techniques like mindfulness, meditation, and breathing exercises. Regular physical activity is crucial too, as it helps to release built-up tension and improve mood. And don't underestimate the power of social connection. Even when you're feeling overwhelmed, reaching out to friends or family for support can make a huge difference. It's also important to recognize that emotional numbness caused by stress isn't something you have to snap out of. Healing takes time. It's about creating space in your life for recovery, not just physically but emotionally. When you give yourself permission to take breaks, to step back, and to reevaluate what's truly important, you begin to restore balance in your life, and with it, the ability to feel again. Emotional numbness doesn't have to be a permanent part of your experience. When you address the root causes of chronic stress and burnout, you begin to unlock the emotional depth that's been blocked off. By learning to manage stress and prioritize your emotional health, you can reconnect with the things that make life meaningful. And most importantly, you can start to feel again. When it comes to emotional numbness, there's a fascinating and often overlooked factor at play: the role of neurochemicals in the brain. You see, our emotions aren't just abstract concepts. They are the result of complex chemical processes happening inside our brains. Neurotransmitters, those little chemical messengers that shuttle information between neurons, are essential to how we feel, think, and respond to the world around us. And when these chemicals become imbalanced or malfunction, it can lead to emotional numbness, a state where you feel disconnected from your own emotions, as though you're watching life from a distance. You may not realize it, but the brain is constantly working to maintain a delicate balance of neurochemicals like serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, and GABA. These chemicals play a crucial role in regulating our mood, behavior, and emotional responses. When everything is functioning as it should, we experience a healthy emotional life. We feel joy when something wonderful happens, we feel sadness when we experience loss, and we feel motivation when we're working toward a goal. But when the balance is disrupted, when certain chemicals are out of sync, it can cause a range of emotional disturbances, including the all-too-common feeling of numbness. For example, serotonin, often called the feel-good neurotransmitter, plays a significant role in regulating mood, sleep, and appetite. It's also involved in feelings of well-being and happiness. When serotonin levels are low, people can experience feelings of sadness, anxiety, and disconnection. But it's not just about feeling sad, it's about feeling nothing at all. If your serotonin levels are off, you may find yourself detached from both positive and negative emotions, unable to experience the highs of joy or the lows of sadness. This can create a sense of emotional numbness, where everything feels flat, like you're no longer able to connect with the emotional range that makes life meaningful. Dopamine is another key player in this process. Known as the reward neurotransmitter, dopamine is responsible for the feelings of pleasure, motivation, and reinforcement. When dopamine levels are balanced, we feel motivated to pursue goals, and we experience a sense of accomplishment when we achieve them. But when dopamine is out of balance, whether it's too low or too high, it can result in emotional numbness. Too little dopamine can leave you feeling uninspired, unmotivated, and emotionally detached from everything around you. You may find yourself unable to feel the excitement or satisfaction that you once would have experienced in response to achievements. No matter how big or small, it's like your brain just isn't rewarding you anymore. Another important neurochemical involved in emotional regulation is norepinephrine. Norepinephrine is often linked to the body's stress response. It helps to regulate attention, focus, and the fight or flight response. In times of stress or danger, norepinephrine levels rise, helping you stay alert and focused. But if your norepinephrine levels are constantly elevated, whether due to chronic stress or ongoing emotional strain, it can result in a state of emotional overload, where the brain becomes fatigued and overwhelmed. This overload can lead to emotional numbness, as your brain becomes less able to process and respond to emotions effectively. It's like you're running on empty, constantly alert but unable to engage meaningfully with your emotions or surroundings. And then there's GABA, gamma-aminobutyric acid, the neurotransmitter that plays a major role in calming the brain. GABA's job is to slow down the brain's activity, helping us relax and manage stress. When GABA levels are low, we may experience anxiety, agitation, or even a sense of disconnection from our own emotions. Low GABA levels can contribute to a heightened stress response, making it even harder for the brain to settle down and experience a sense of calm. And when you're constantly on edge, it becomes incredibly difficult to connect with your feelings in a meaningful way. The feeling of emotional numbness can take root when the brain's ability to regulate itself is compromised, leaving you feeling emotionally stuck in a state of overwhelm. But how does this all tie into the feeling of emotional numbness? Here's where things get a bit more complex. These neurochemicals don't just work in isolation. They interact with each other, influencing how we experience the world emotionally. When one chemical is out of balance, it can throw off the entire system, causing a cascade of effects that lead to numbness. For example, if serotonin is low, it can contribute to feelings of anxiety, which can in turn reduce dopamine levels, making you feel even more detached from the joy of accomplishment. Meanwhile, if norepinephrine is chronically elevated, it can prevent GABA from doing its job, leaving you feeling overstimulated, unable to relax, and emotionally drained. It's a vicious cycle that can leave you feeling emotionally disconnected, as if you're unable to tap into your natural emotional range. But what causes these chemical imbalances in the first place? There are several factors that can disrupt the delicate balance of neurotransmitters. One of the most common culprits is chronic stress. As mentioned earlier, stress can cause a significant increase in cortisol levels, which in turn can interfere with the production and regulation of other neurochemicals, like serotonin and dopamine. Over time, this imbalance can leave you feeling emotionally numb. In fact, chronic stress is often one of the primary contributors to depression, anxiety, and other emotional disorders, all of which are linked to a dysregulated emotional response. Another factor that can disrupt neurochemical balance is poor diet. Nutritional deficiencies, especially in key nutrients like omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin D, and B vitamins, can negatively impact brain function and neurotransmitter production. A lack of proper nutrition can also affect the body's ability to regulate stress and mood, further contributing to emotional numbness. Inadequate sleep can also play a huge role. Sleep is critical for the brain to repair and regenerate, and a lack of restorative sleep can cause imbalances in neurotransmitter levels, leading to mood disturbances and emotional detachment. Medication and substance abuse are other factors that can influence neurotransmitter levels. Some medications, especially antidepressants, can alter the balance of serotonin and dopamine, which is why people often experience side effects like emotional numbness or a lack of emotional range. Similarly, substance abuse, including alcohol or drugs, can interfere with the brain's ability to produce and regulate neurotransmitters, leaving individuals feeling detached or emotionally flat. So what can be done to restore balance to these neurochemicals and reconnect with your emotions? The first step is acknowledging that emotional numbness may be a result of a chemical imbalance, and that addressing this imbalance is key to feeling again. Treatment often involves a combination of therapies, cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, or other forms of psychotherapy can help address underlying emotional issues, while medication or supplements may be necessary to regulate neurotransmitter levels. For those struggling with low serotonin or dopamine, antidepressants or mood stabilizers may be prescribed to help restore balance. Lifestyle changes, such as improving sleep, managing stress, and eating a nutrient-dense diet, can also support the brain in producing and regulating neurotransmitters effectively. But beyond the chemical approach, reconnecting with your emotions also requires giving yourself permission to feel. Emotional numbness can be a defense mechanism, a way for the brain to protect itself when it's overwhelmed. To begin healing, you need to allow yourself to experience the full range of emotions. This might mean confronting uncomfortable feelings, processing past trauma, or simply giving yourself time to rest and recover from stress. When you take steps to address both the chemical and emotional aspects of numbness, you can begin to break free from the fog and reconnect with your feelings. Emotional numbness, driven by neurochemical imbalances, may seem daunting, but with the right approach, it can be overcome. By understanding the science behind it and taking active steps to restore balance, you can begin to feel again, reconnect with your emotions, and live a fuller, more connected life. In a world that constantly tells us to be more, do more, and achieve more, the pressure of success can be overwhelming. Everywhere we look, whether it's through social media, advertising, or even conversations with friends and family, we're bombarded with the idea that success is the ultimate goal. It's easy to get caught up in the idea that happiness and fulfillment are directly tied to achieving certain milestones, getting the perfect job, the perfect house, the perfect relationship. But here's the truth: the constant pressure to succeed, to keep climbing the ladder, to maintain an image of having it all together, can have a profound effect on our emotional health. This pressure doesn't just strain us, it can also contribute to feelings of emotional numbness. The world often makes us believe that success is something that is visible to others. It's the material possessions, the achievements, the accolades, and the recognition that make us worthy. But here's the irony: when we focus too much on outward markers of success, we often lose sight of our own internal emotional needs. The desire for external validation can be so consuming that we forget to check in with ourselves, to ask if we are truly happy, truly fulfilled, or simply going through the motions, because we think that's what we're supposed to do. This can lead to a sense of emptiness and detachment, even when we appear to have everything going for us on the surface. Consider someone who has achieved everything they thought they wanted: a high-paying job, a beautiful home, a loving partner, and the admiration of peers. From the outside, they seem to have it all. But internally, they feel nothing. They may have worked tirelessly to reach these milestones, but now that they've arrived, they don't feel the satisfaction they expected. The joy of accomplishment doesn't feel as real as they thought it would, and instead of celebrating, they feel empty. They've followed the path that society laid out for them, but in doing so, they've disconnected from their true selves. This is the paradox of success. It promises fulfillment, but when it's the only thing that matters, it often leads to emotional numbness. The key issue here is that we start measuring our self-worth by external achievements rather than internal happiness. We begin to equate success with how much we can accumulate, how many goals we can check off the list, how many people we can impress, how many titles we can earn. But the more we chase this external validation, the more disconnected we become from our true emotions. We start to lose touch with what makes us feel alive, and instead we focus on what others expect of us. We become so absorbed in our roles as successful employees, parents, partners, or friends that we forget to nurture our own emotional well-being. Success becomes a mask that hides our true feelings. This constant drive for success also comes with an inherent fear of failure. When everything is riding on our ability to succeed, failure becomes a terrifying prospect. It's not just about losing a job or missing a promotion. It's about the very real fear of not being good enough. This fear of failure can keep us on a treadmill of constant achievement, where we're never able to stop and ask ourselves what we really want. Instead, we keep pushing forward because success is the only option. Over time, this relentless pursuit of success without checking in with our emotional needs can lead to burnout, exhaustion, and ultimately, emotional numbness. We become so focused on achieving that we forget how to feel, and when we stop feeling, we stop truly living. The pressure to succeed also comes with the expectation that we must always be on top of our game, whether it's at work, in our personal lives, or even on social media. There's this relentless need to present a picture of perfection. We see others sharing their successes, their highlights, and their accomplishments, and we feel the need to keep up, to match them, or even surpass them. But the truth is, what we often see on social media isn't the full picture. It's a curated, edited version of life. And when we compare ourselves to this version of success, we inevitably feel inadequate. The more we buy into this illusion of perfection, the more we disconnect from our true selves. We forget that it's okay not to have everything figured out, not to be perfect, and not to constantly be striving for the next big achievement. But here's the kicker. The more we prioritize external success, the more we begin to neglect the things that actually bring us emotional fulfillment. We stop doing things for the sake of enjoyment, and instead we do them because they're tied to an outcome. A simple hobby becomes a productivity task. A family gathering turns into an opportunity to showcase our success. Even our relationships can feel like obligations, as we try to meet the expectations of others rather than nurturing genuine connections. Over time, these superficial interactions and outcomes only deepen the sense of numbness. We start to question if what we've achieved is actually meaningful. When the pursuit of success is no longer aligned with our core values or true desires, it can leave us feeling lost and emotionally detached. The danger here is that we begin to believe that our worth is tied to our accomplishments. We think that success will fill the void, but it doesn't. It may temporarily mask the emptiness, but it doesn't solve the underlying issue. And what happens when we've achieved everything we thought we needed to achieve, only to find that the emotional fulfillment we were searching for isn't there? The result is emotional numbness. The more we define ourselves by what we do, the less we connect with who we truly are. So what can we do to break free from this cycle? The first step is to redefine what success truly means. Success doesn't have to be defined by titles, accomplishments, or external validation. True success is about alignment with your values, your passions, and your emotional well-being. It's about finding joy in the process rather than obsessing over the outcome. It's about making space in your life for the things that make you feel alive, whether that's spending time with loved ones, pursuing a hobby, or simply allowing yourself to rest and recharge. Another crucial step is learning to let go of the need for constant external validation. It's okay to be imperfect. It's okay to not have everything figured out. And it's okay to take a step back from the hustle and bustle of achievement in order to check in with yourself. Ask yourself, am I doing this because it brings me joy? Or am I doing it because I think I'm supposed to? By focusing on what truly matters to you, not what society tells you should matter, you can begin to break free from the trap of emotional numbness. Lastly, it's important to recognize that emotional numbness isn't a permanent state. It's a sign that something needs to change. If you're feeling disconnected, ask yourself, what am I chasing? And more importantly, why am I chasing it? True fulfillment doesn't come from constant achievement or success. It comes from being in touch with yourself and your emotions. When you stop seeking external validation and start aligning with what truly makes you feel alive, you can rediscover the emotional depth that has been buried under the pressure of success. The path to emotional fulfillment isn't about doing more, it's about doing less, but doing it with intention. It's about reconnecting with the things that bring you joy, finding balance in your life, and most importantly, learning to feel again. In today's digital world, social media plays an undeniable role in how we perceive ourselves and the world around us. Platforms like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok allow us to stay connected with friends, family, and even strangers across the globe. On the surface, social media seems like a harmless way to share moments and connect with others. But the reality is that it has a much deeper impact on our emotional well-being than we often realize. Social media creates an illusion of perfection that can leave us feeling inadequate, disconnected, and even numb. Have you ever found yourself scrolling through your feed, only to see picture-perfect moments, meticulously curated photos, and seemingly flawless lives? It's easy to get caught in the comparison trap, especially when it feels like everyone else is living their best life while you're stuck in a moment of emotional numbness. The truth is, what you see on social media is rarely the full picture. People tend to post only the highlights, those moments that reflect success, happiness, beauty, and adventure. But what's often missing from these posts are the struggles, the flaws, the times when things didn't go as planned, or the quiet moments of vulnerability that make us human. This curated version of life can create an unhealthy standard that many of us feel pressured to live up to. As we compare our behind-the-scenes reality to everyone else's highlight reel, we begin to feel like we're falling short. This sense of inadequacy can slowly chip away at our self-esteem, and over time it leads to emotional detachment. We stop engaging with our feelings, thinking, if everyone else is fine and thriving, why do I feel this way? The constant bombardment of perfect images can make us feel isolated, as if we are the only ones struggling with emotional numbness, anxiety, or sadness. Social media also feeds into the idea that our self-worth is directly tied to how we present ourselves to the world. Likes, comments, shares, and followers become a form of validation. But the problem with this is that social media validation is fleeting. It doesn't provide the deep connection or fulfillment that comes from genuine face-to-face relationships or from within ourselves. Instead, we begin to rely on external approval, waiting for the next like or comment to fill the void. But the emptiness that comes with this pursuit of social validation is one of the leading causes of emotional numbness. When we rely too heavily on others' perceptions of us, we lose touch with our authentic selves and the emotions that matter most. Even more troubling is the way social media fosters a sense of isolation. Despite the ability to connect with anyone at any time, many people report feeling lonelier than ever. This is because social media encourages surface-level interactions, where the depth of real human connection is often lost. We may be friends with hundreds of people online, but how many of those connections are truly meaningful? How many of those relationships nurture our emotional health? When social media replaces authentic relationships, it's easy to start feeling disconnected, not just from others but from our own feelings and needs. It's also important to consider the impact of constantly being connected. The dopamine hits we get from checking notifications, scrolling through posts, or receiving new followers can feel rewarding in the short term, but they don't last. This constant need for external validation can keep us in a state of emotional unrest. The more we seek approval through social media, the more disconnected we become from our own emotional needs. Instead of being present with our feelings, we're distracted by the false narrative that social media creates. We start thinking that success, happiness, and self-worth are measured by how others see us, which in turn makes us less able to experience life's true emotional depth. The truth is that social media isn't the cause of our emotional numbness, but it plays a significant role in perpetuating it. A constant comparison, the pressure to present an idealized version of our lives, and the reliance on external validation all contribute to a sense of detachment from our own emotions. So what can we do about it? The first step is to recognize the impact that social media has on our emotional state. It's easy to get caught up in the endless scroll, but being aware of how it affects us is key. If we can consciously take a step back, limit our time on these platforms, and stop comparing our lives to the edited version that others present, we can begin to rebuild a healthier relationship with our emotions. We need to remind ourselves that social media is just a snapshot of someone else's life, not the full picture. Everyone has their own struggles, challenges, and moments of vulnerability, even if they don't post about them. Reconnecting with our emotions means taking the time to engage with the world around us in a more authentic way, whether that's through meaningful conversations, hobbies that bring us joy, or simply allowing ourselves the space to feel. In the end, emotional numbness fueled by social media can be overcome when we stop looking outward for validation and instead look inward for fulfillment. It's easy to overlook how much physical health can influence our emotional and mental state, but the truth is, our bodies and minds are deeply interconnected. When we're dealing with chronic illness or ongoing health issues, the impact isn't just physical, it affects how we feel emotionally and mentally as well. The strain of managing a health condition or simply the fatigue that comes with it can gradually take its toll on our ability to connect with our emotions. Over time, this disconnect can lead to feelings of numbness, where everything feels distant, and it becomes harder to feel joy, sadness, or even excitement. When you're managing a chronic illness, your body is constantly fighting or coping with something, whether it's a physical ailment, pain, or fatigue. The energy that would typically go into processing and experiencing emotions is diverted to simply maintaining day-to-day function. You might find yourself going through the motions, handling your responsibilities, but without any emotional engagement. The physical limitations that come with health issues often leave you feeling exhausted, drained, and sometimes defeated, which leaves little room for emotional expression. As a result, emotional numbness can settle in, creating a barrier between you and the emotional experiences that used to feel natural. The impact of physical health on emotional well-being isn't just about feeling physically unwell. It's also about how your mind responds to ongoing health struggles. For many, chronic illness brings about feelings of frustration, helplessness, or even hopelessness. Over time, if these feelings are not addressed or processed, they can compound and contribute to emotional disconnection. You might stop feeling the highs of life because you're so focused on managing the lows. When pain, fatigue, or illness becomes a constant part of your life, you can start to feel like you're living in a perpetual state of survival, and emotional numbness can be a natural response to that constant stress. Moreover, the mental toll of chronic illness can exacerbate the physical symptoms. Anxiety, depression, and stress can manifest as physical symptoms, creating a vicious cycle where the emotional strain makes your body feel worse, and vice versa. It becomes harder to separate what's physical and what's emotional, and in the process, you can begin to feel like you're numb to everything. Not just your physical pain, but your emotions too. The result is a sense of detachment, where life doesn't feel as vibrant, and you may find yourself emotionally distant from both your experiences and the people around you. The good news, though, is that healing isn't just about fixing the body, it's about recognizing how intertwined physical and emotional health truly are. Managing chronic illness means taking care of both your body and your emotions. Addressing physical symptoms and getting the medical care you need is essential, but so is addressing the emotional toll that illness takes. Whether through therapy, mindfulness, or simply allowing yourself to feel and express your emotions, you can begin to reconnect with yourself. You don't have to carry the weight of physical and emotional numbness alone. With the right support, it's possible to break through the fog and start feeling again. As we've explored throughout this video, emotional numbness is a complex and often misunderstood experience. It's not just a feeling of sadness or depression. It's the absence of feeling, like a fog that settles over your emotions, making everything feel distant and muted. And as we've seen, there are many factors that can contribute to this state, whether it's unresolved trauma, chronic stress, neurochemical imbalances, the pressure of constant success, the illusion of perfection through social media, or even physical health challenges. The common thread is that emotional numbness often comes when we lose connection with ourselves, our feelings, our true desires, and our inner experiences. The key takeaway here is that emotional numbness is not something you just snap out of. It's not a weakness or something you can easily fix by simply thinking positive. It's a sign that something deeper is at play, and recognizing that is the first step toward healing. The good news is that emotional numbness isn't permanent. It's a signal from your body and mind that something needs attention. And by addressing the underlying causes, you can start the process of reconnecting with your emotions, and ultimately, with yourself. So what can you do if you find yourself feeling emotionally numb? First, it's important to be patient with yourself. Understand that healing takes time, and it's okay to feel stuck for a while. Start by acknowledging what might be contributing to your emotional state. If trauma is at the root, seeking support from a therapist or counselor can help you work through those painful experiences. If chronic stress is weighing you down, focus on finding ways to reduce it through self-care, mindfulness, or simply learning to say no to things that drain your energy. Rebalancing neurochemicals, whether through diet, exercise, or medical support, can also play a crucial role in restoring emotional vitality. And as we've discussed, taking a step back from the pressures of social media and external validation can help you reconnect with what truly matters to you. The process of reconnecting with your emotions doesn't require perfection. It requires presence. Start small. Take a moment each day to check in with yourself. How are you feeling? What emotions are you experiencing right now? Even if those feelings are difficult or overwhelming, allow yourself to feel them. Emotional numbness often comes from avoidance, from burying feelings we don't want to face. But when you allow yourself to acknowledge those feelings, even just for a few minutes a day, you begin to break down the emotional walls that numbness has built. Another important step is to re-engage with the things that once brought you joy or fulfillment. Even if you don't feel excited about them right now, simply engaging with your hobbies, passions, and relationships can help reignite emotional connections. Start with activities that make you feel alive, even if they don't immediately spark a strong emotional response. Over time, this can help rebuild the emotional energy that's been dormant. Most importantly, be kind to yourself during this process. Healing from emotional numbness is a journey, and it's one that requires self-compassion. It's easy to get frustrated when things don't improve quickly, but remember that emotional health, just like physical health, takes time and consistent effort. Reach out for support when you need it, whether it's from loved ones, a therapist, or a support group. There's no shame in needing help to reconnect with yourself, and the road to emotional well-being is often smoother when we walk it together. At the end of the day, emotional numbness doesn't define you. It's a temporary state that can be overcome, and by recognizing the causes and taking proactive steps to heal, you can rediscover a rich, fulfilling emotional life. The journey may be challenging, but it's also an opportunity for growth, self-awareness, and ultimately a deeper connection with who you are and what truly matters in life. Don't rush the process. Take it one step at a time, and remember, you are worthy of feeling deeply, experiencing joy, and living a life that resonates with your true self. Thank you for watching, and I hope that by reflecting on what we've discussed today, you feel empowered to start your journey toward emotional connection and healing.